Hello and welcome to this month's DIY. For this month, we're going to be doing a fun dessert, crispy peanut butter balls. I'll show you those in just a moment. Every few months or so, we're going to try doing a creative appetizer or a fun dessert that you can try making from home. And I'm going to be sharing some recipes, and feel free to send in your favorite recipes that you'd like me to try to demonstrate for those watching. But because I can't cook here at the library, I have some screenshots from some cooking I did at home to share this fun dessert with you. So just give me a moment while I bring this up. So this is the recipe. We're going to start, um, we're going to have a link to this recipe when we're done. So don't feel like you have to write this down or remember everything. This will be available at the end of the demonstration. And I'm cycling through this real quick. And I'm going to start at the beginning. So we're going to make some crispy peanut butter balls. We need some ingredients. We need 2 cups of creamy peanut butter. And we need 2 cups of confectioner sugar or powdered sugar. We need a stick of butter and half of a teaspoon of salt. Again, that's just 1/2 of a teaspoon of salt. 2 cups of crisp puffed rice. And so we'll take a stick of butter, put it in a pot, and we're going to melt it down and melt it with some peanut butter. If you've never melted peanut butter, it melts quite easily. I like to melt it on low to medium heat. Just be careful not to scorch it if you try to turn up the heat to melt it a little bit faster. But it doesn't take long for it to turn into this nice creamy peanut butter mix. Once it's melted, go ahead and add your half a teaspoon. In the picture, it looks like that's more than is really there, but that's just a half a teaspoon of salt. And stir that in, make sure it's nice and creamy. And then you can go ahead and leave that on the burner on warm or low, because we're going to need it here in just a moment. It doesn't take long to do the next few steps. Find a large bowl, and we're going to mix our crisp rice cereal, and our confectioner sugar, mix them all together. And then we're going to take that dry mixture and we're going to pour the wet peanut butter mixture into this bowl. And then we're going to start stirring it. It's a little tricky to stir, but it will give it some time and try to mix it all together, and it will stir nicely, and it'll look something like this when it's done. Sometimes if it's too runny, I'll sprinkle some extra confectioner sugar in there just to make sure it's nice and even. But once we have this, we then need to make some rounded peanut butter balls. So the size that you determine at this point is what they're mostly going to look like when we're done. From feedback I've received from people, it's really easy to make these balls too big. These peanut butter balls larger than they need to be. A tablespoon is almost too much. So I like to take about 2 teaspoons worth of peanut butter mixture and then mold that into a ball. It doesn't have to be perfect, so don't feel like it has to be a perfectly shaped round treat. Also, these peanut butter balls are kind of brittle. You can kind of see in this mixture kind of how brittle it looks. When you mold these into balls, you kind of want to squish down on them pretty good so that they hold their shape. If you don't, they'll fall apart really easily. And I'll explain that here in just a moment. But you kind of want to compress these peanut butter balls to their desired shape, and that sort of gets the air out of them, and it helps them keep their shape. So once you have all of your mixture turned into as many peanut butter balls as you wish, whatever size you want, then we need to melt some chocolate. I like using semi-sweet, but this is a dessert where dark chocolate chips may be appropriate. This peanut butter mixture is really sweet. So the semi-sweet chocolate and even the dark chocolate help temper that and help make it not so sweet. And so that's sort of the same reason why we use semi-sweet chips, chocolate chips, when we're making chocolate chip cookies, because the cookie mixture is just really sweet with all that sugar. So putting a semi-sweet chip or a dark chocolate chip just kind of helps tone that down a little bit. But if you've never melted chocolate chips before, it's helpful to have a double boiler. But if you don't have a double boiler, you don't need to go buy one or get one. If you do a lot of baking where you're finding yourself melting down chocolate and other things a lot, it might be helpful, but you don't need one. To make a homemade DIY double boiler, you just need a pot. I like using a big glass bowl. And for those of you that do canning, you can use the little silicone placemat sort of that goes inside of the pot that the cans would sit on. This isn't essential, but if you have one, you can use it. The reason I like using a glass bowl is when you put the bowl in the pot and a little bit of water, it won't float. If you try using a stainless steel bowl, it's going to float really easily on top of your water, and it just makes it more difficult to melt the chocolate down. Whereas a heavy glass bowl will sink down into the inch or so of water, and that warm water will get up along the edges of the bowl and underneath. And so when you heat it up, the chocolate chips will melt. Although after you pour the chips in, it does take a while to get from here to here. It takes a while, so be patient with it. I like to melt my chocolate chips on a medium heat. I'm really careful not to try to get it too hot too fast. One, I don't want to burn the chocolate, but if you get your water boiling, and I only have about an inch of water in this pot, the displacement of the bowl causes it to rise deceptively high. So you be careful how much water you put in here, because once this water starts boiling, you do not want to get any of that boiling water splash to fall back inside of the bowl with the chocolate. If these chocolate chips get wet while they're trying to melt, they're going to seize up on you. They also seize up when it gets too hot, but the bigger conundrum I found is getting water in there causes the whole thing to seize up, and then essentially it's ruined and you have to start over. I use about 16 ounces of chocolate chips. I don't add them all in at once. I do about half, start melting half, and then I slowly add in the rest until they start to melt into this nice creamy chocolate. Do not try to add too much in, or it's going to be really difficult to melt. Once you get a melted chocolate chip mixture, you can slowly add more and get the desired amount of chocolate you want. But the recipe I have calls for about 12 ounces of chocolate chips. I think that's sort of insufficient. I like to use at least 16, but I'm not surprised when I hear some people need to use as much as 24 ounces of chocolate chips to get enough to cover our peanut butter balls here in a moment. So once you have this chocolate mixture melted, again, take your time, go real slow. Be careful not to splash any boiling water in your bowl, but you can then spoon your refrigerated peanut butter balls that we made back in this step into the mixture. And because we're spooning these peanut butter balls into molten chocolate, the liquid of the liquid nature of the chocolate will cause the peanut butter balls to erode, and the heat of the molten chocolate will cause the peanut butter balls to melt. So you can't take too much time doing this. You sort of have to just drop the ball in, roll it around a couple times and take it out. To help with this effort, once you make your balls, stick them in the fridge and let them cool for about 15 to 20 minutes. They don't need to go in the freezer, but make sure they're a little bit cool before you start throwing them in your molten chocolate. Let's go back. So it's really easy at first, but towards the end, you start running out of chocolate quick, and then it's harder to get your peanut butter balls covered up. But once you get them covered up, put them on a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper works best. You can use wax paper. In my example, I'm just throwing them on a cookie sheet. It really helps if you put them on some kind of a parchment paper. But drop them down, and then once you have all of the peanut butter balls covered in chocolate, stick them in the fridge and let them cool for about 15 to 20 minutes. And that's essentially it. As you can see, the layer of chocolate around the ball makes the size expand. So I found that a tablespoon worth of peanut butter is probably too much. You cut that in half and maybe have 2 teaspoons worth, and that seems like a good amount. When you're ready to serve these, I do like to use toothpicks. As soon as you start picking them up, the chocolate starts to melt almost immediately. But these make wonderful, great desserts for family get-togethers, or it's just a fun, unique dessert to do anytime during the holidays, for any of the upcoming holidays, or anytime. If you have a chocolate or peanut butter lover in your family, feel free to try to make this for them. Obviously, be cautious of folks who have peanut allergies or peanut butter allergies, but this is a wonderful dessert that a lot of people can enjoy. And thank you all for tuning in and listening. Again, is the recipe. I will have a PDF downloadable version of this recipe on our website, pagosalibrary.org. Mouse over the adult tab and click on DIY, and you'll be able to see a lot of our DIY activities. A PDF of this recipe will go there shortly, as will a recording of this video. But thank you all for participating, and have a wonderful day. And I hope to see you next month and the months following for even more fun DIY activities, and including some DIY food events. Have a good day, everyone.